Welcome back. Welcome back. It's good to see you. Step outside. We got some stuff to get into. Let's go. I got this. This whole setup is just trippy at this point. I've got a picnic table. But I'm really just sitting on a chair and it kind of just looks like it goes back there. Yeah, I'm pushing the hardware of this stuff to the limits. But anyway, enough about that. Welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for joining. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded. It was just yesterday. But the reason I stopped uploading, it wasn't because of the heat. It wasn't because I was sweating profusely and suffering under that direct sunlight. No, it wasn't because of that. It wasn't because of the bugs. There were like some kind of like a mosquito or sand fly or sand flea thing gnawing at my flesh pretty good. It wasn't because of that, guys. That's not why I ended the video. Okay, if you remember from that last video, go back and check it out if you haven't already seen it. I had one more question. I had one more thing that I was going to get to. It's written down on this piece of paper right here, but I held off. I decided, you know what? It's not the time. It's not right now is not the time. This time, that current time wasn't the time. This is the time. But not, like I said, not because of the heat or the sand fleas that were consuming my flesh. It wasn't because of that. It was because this theme of this thing I'm about to cover, it's a big one. It's a doozy. It's worth its own video. It's worth its own attention. It's something you'll hear me go on and on about on this channel, on these posts, on these kinds of things. And, you know, I like this. I like that I'm kind of getting them out the way. You know, let's get them right out the way. All the hits, all the things that really matter. And then we'll fill in the nuanced stuff. We'll go back. We'll fill it in. But we got to hit some big topics. Now, you're thinking right now, you're like, wow, he wrote this down. He was going to read this, but it was going to be too long. So this must be like a doozy. You know, this whole paper, it's gotten me through some good Reddit stuff so far. But this must take up most of the page, right? Well, no, it doesn't. No, it's very short, but I still wanted to read it to you guys. I wrote it verbatim. I want to read it verbatim. I want to read the title. I want to get this whole theme kind of out in the open. This topic, just let's air it out. Let's get it out there for everybody to kind of tune in on. And yeah, as always, I'd love to hear back from you guys. So let me know what you think. Let's start with the title. At first, it says, Low Back Hurts. Low back hurts. That's the title. Before I go any further, I have 3 herniated discs in my low back, L4, L5, and S1. They were excruciating to deal with. And I had an option when I went to the doctor. I had a beautiful doctor, Miami Sports and Chiropractic. If you're down in South Florida area, she's an angel. She's a saint. And she told me I have 2 options. You know, they're that bad where, yes, surgery is one of the options. You know, they're that bad. It's not like someone's just going to tell you, you know, this is minimal herniation and you should just kind of work your way through it, physical therapy, and grit your teeth. She was like, this is that bad. And I knew I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit. I couldn't stand. So I was in just excruciating amounts of pain. And it wasn't because of the yoga. I had already been teaching and practicing for maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years at that point. But it wasn't because of the yoga. The yoga didn't help. I'll get to that. But the injury itself was caused completely unrelated on a run. And the locking of my hip, the locking of my sacral joint led to 3 herniations way down the line, like maybe a month and a half, 2 months later, and just an explosion in my back. So I really take this to heart. As soon as I see this title, I take this to heart. This is one where when people come to my class, my students' classes, anything that I'm involved in physically, they're going to leave with a healthy and happy low back, but just spine in general. I want everybody to have nice and healthy vertebrae because we only get one spine, and I've injured all of my body. I've broken bones. I've torn things, pulled things, sprained things, the whole 9 yards. And dislocated all the big hits, all the injuries. I love to get them through, the big ones. But when I tell you that those 3 herniations working together, they felt unlike any other pain I've ever experienced, and the level of like debilitation that I felt, the inability to do anything on my own. It was just very crippling, and it's something that I never want anyone to experience ever. So I studied incredibly, in very difficult situations, obviously, because that's how I was taught. I was taught through my injury, and I had to learn. And the other option was either you get surgery or you work your ass off. And I'm going to need 100. I can remember the quote. I'm going to need 110% from you. Can you give me 110%? I said, to avoid the surgery, yes. If it's even a possibility, you got 110%. She probably got 200% of me, because I became addicted to understanding the mechanic of the hip, the mechanic of that SI joint, the ways that the vertebrae, move and interact with one another, and all of that kind of thing. So it became like a staple within my practice, is to make sure that if someone comes to your class, they should never leave with a hurt back. I'll get more into this, but just seeing that, it immediately just hit something inside of me. And listen, I'm not even reading it and saying someone hurt this person's back, right? As soon as I see low back is hurting, I just think, if this person doesn't get any kind of direct tutelage in this feed, I'm gonna step in. Thank goodness, some good words of encouragement, words of advice were given. So I felt comfortable with just kind of pulling the post itself and giving my opinion here, and giving my standpoint on all this from here. But if it needs to be, share it to that direct post, and that person can see if there's anything else that they've missed on those other those other comments where they were giving advice. It's very helpful stuff. It's a very cool community over there. I like scrolling on that, reading the things where people are, I see there's so many positive influences and very good sources of advice and opinion there. So it's nice. Okay. I'm just going to read the whole thing now, and then we'll dive into the whole entirety of it. So just bear with me. It might take a minute, don't fast forward. I should check the timestamp. I should count how long it takes, and say, fast forward to so-and-so. All right. I think it's from Upward Facing Dog, to be honest. But it aches, and any advice would be great. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Any poses or stretches will help. Thank you. I could put this down, because it wasn't as long as I made it out to be, but the theme, the topic, is a huge one. I think it's from Upward Facing Dog. I think you're right. I think you are correct. Upward Facing Dog, for a lot of people, can become injurious very, very quickly. All right, and I'll explain why. First of all, any kind of movement pattern, if it's incorrect, if we do it in repetition, it's going to lead to injury. And I don't care what that is. All right, I've worked with guitarists that their whole upper back was just twisted out of whack because they were holding the guitar a certain way for years, and they needed just a little bit of instruction on how to kind of set their shoulders properly. They could still hold the guitar, but they weren't twisting themselves into like deformity, basically. So it's something like that, something so simple where you'd think there's no way that it can become that injurious. They can really hurt themselves that much. Yes, any movement pattern, and done incorrectly in high repetition, will lead to injury. Write it down. Rewind it, right? The 4 seconds I just said. Okay. So if you're doing something even just slightly wrong, you might not notice it at first. Yeah. You might be doing it comfortable enough to get through it, and it's fine. And then one day it's not, and it feels a little off. Well, structurally, the Upward Facing Dog has its use. All right. It's a very good back bend. It's an entire front line extension. I'd like to say from the tops of the feet. I know some people say from the fronts of the thighs. As long as they're done correctly, both are fine. I like to say tops of the feet, and you're trying to drag the tops of the feet. So the upper body's engaged, the core is obviously pulled tight. There's no dropping of the head. There's just a slightly lifted chin. It's a safe and comfortable posture that can be done if everything else falls into place properly. Even just the way that you get into the pose. If you go into upward facing dog from like a dippy divey chaturanga, then your spine hasn't been properly activated before it goes into the up dog. So that waving effect actually becomes one of the most injurious aspects of it. So we have to slow that down. When I say, is it from the up dog? Absolutely. I'm not saying it's because this person's doing it incorrectly. You can be doing a perfect upward facing dog. There isn't a need to do it to the extent with many people are doing it. It adds the flagrance, it adds the flair, it adds that sexification of the practice that we're seeing all the time. So yeah, we're seeing it. How many times? It's wild. There's many other postures, like upward facing dog, that could almost be completely removed for the modern body type. Like I said with the, I think it was shoulder stand. There's certain postures that we can get the benefits from other poses where we don't have to hold them as long. We can do them in sequence, or we can do them broken up a little bit with pauses in between. There's not nearly the risk of injury. And we get to build, not just diminish our longevity on the mat, but we get to build our longevity on the mat. We get to build endurance, durability. We get to build these things so that we're not just feeling them when we are on the mat, but in our everyday life, in our everyday movement patterns, those are being solidified. Those are being corrected. Things like a hip hinge, things like how to properly sit, where to sit on your sit bones, rather than kind of lean back onto the sacral joint. Even that could bother your back, and might have just done so for me. Maybe I'm in pain right now. I won't show it. Okay. So upward facing dog, like a few of the other postures, we have to remember the sequences are for certain body types. They come from India. They don't use chairs the same way we do. They don't use the bathroom, in certain areas the same way we do. So the hip structure was very, very different. The movement patterns on a daily basis are very, very different. And that's why something like upward facing dog can become so aggravating on someone's back almost immediately. So I'm going to speak from my own experience. Just as a guy, I'm not going to go into a practice that I think is for flexibility, sexy splits, these flagrant and flary and dancey kind of moves. I do now, I teach it. That's beside the point. But back before I knew what yoga really was and what the purpose of those certain postures might be, I wasn't even going to approach it. And if I did, I probably would have hurt myself a lot sooner, because there isn't the care and attention to something like an up dog. There isn't the proper tutelage or instruction as like something to an up dog, where a guy's hip structure needs a lot more care and attention than just, the basic flows of vinyasa, the basic flows of the sun salutations. A full Ashtanga? Are you kidding me? A half primary would have put me in the hospital, To this day, I know a lot of guys that are incredibly fit, incredibly athletic. If you put them in a half primary, they're in trouble. They're not going to be walking very well the next couple of days, let alone feeling with their arms and their shoulders. There's so much demand, so much taxing demand that's new, that's different. So why don't we use the postures in a more modern way? Why don't we take apart the postures so that we can gain the benefits? We can read the room. We can understand what people need. Not to say this teacher that led these classes where this person might have hurt themselves isn't doing that. They might have been. It could just be this person's up dog. I'm just talking more of a general scope. Is like, as a community, are we still so stuck on the traditional poses? Is that really what we're going to do, guys? That's the hill we're going to die on? The traditional postures? That's what the attention's been to. Asana, the thing that isn't really even mentioned in any of the ancient texts, especially not in any kind of idea of sequencing or flow, a concept of entertainment that it's become. If we were looking to go back to its roots, if we were looking to go back to truly what's traditional, we wouldn't look to the postures. We would look to the stories, integrate the stories into the practice and the postures, absolutely, just like the postures were originally meant to do. But I don't think we would, lose much of the philosophy, lose much of the science if we remove something like upward facing dog. If we remove something like, not to say remove, right? It's got a purpose. I do teach up dog. I do teach up dog. After we're warmed up, after our core is properly engaged, after we have built enough pressure where there is the necessity of relief in the front line, absolutely, we do an up dog. Sometimes we'll even hold it. Oh goodness, a nice low cobra, a sphinx. They're safe, they're secure back bends that we could do. And they're going to be there. In Purna, you're going to always get a full body practice. Hatha, Vinyasa, Raja, you're always going to get a full body practice. And during it, you're going to hear the philosophy, you're going to hear the science so that you know, yeah, one of the postures that you might think was some super traditional pose, it's been modified a little bit because your body type doesn't need to do it in the super traditional way. And the reason I modified it is because the posture itself was meant to be part of a story. And that story and the morals and the beauty of the story and the characters and the meaning, that so much more important than you pulling off the posture, especially for the 50th time in one class. Like I said, in repetition, we could take the heel up off the ground. Oh boy, Warrior 2, keep that heel down. Warrior 1, why? Why are we still torquing our femur into our hip joint and trying to square our hips, which is just creating irreparable pressure in the SI joint, and it's creating imbalance whether you like it or not. Oh, well, Dom, you're just an old man. And exactly. Are we supposed to only be doing these postures as children where our hips are still pliable and we are still uninjurable? Or should we be making these small changes so that the practitioner is able to enjoy the postures for what they are? Sthiram sukham asanam, steady and comfortable postures, sustainable postures. We're looking for dhyana. We're looking for meditation. We're looking for the ability to withdraw our senses and dive within, to become more introspective, more aware, more self-aware, more aware of our self-sourced joy and love and peace. You think that's going to happen if somebody's just aggravating their back in an upward-facing dog because you tell them to do it for the 50th time? And they think that it must be right because they saw that they're in the traditional sun salutations? The heels down in a Warrior 1. Do that in repetition. Do that 108 in repetition. And I can almost guarantee you, if you have a room full of guys, that work blue collar jobs, let's just say, right? That's the room, that's the hand you've been dealt. That day, you were going to lead 108 sun sals, and that's the room that walks in. You put their heels down, they're hurting, man. They're hurting. Their hips don't need that. You make them do up dogs, oh my gosh. They won't be coming back. They will not be coming back. And they'll have infused in their mind that the postures are the practice. The postures are the practice. So if the postures are the practice, then I must do up dog because that's the practice. No. I always tell my students this. Honor your body, do what feels right, and don't compare yourself to anyone else in the room. And if that means at some point in the practice you find yourself in a seated position breathing, you might be doing more yoga than anyone else in here. You're listening. Truly. Now, am I talking about doing a forearm plank and we're kind of digging deep, we're overcoming, and we're breathing resiliently, and, you just feel a little tired, you're going to put your knees down and you're going to rest because Dom said at the beginning that if there's a point where you need to put your knees down and rest, you can? It's probably not the scenario we're talking about, right? We all understand that? It's probably not that. Okay? It's not the up dog. I'm not going to hold, you start skipping up dog. Respect. I probably haven't cued it that many times for you to need to skip it, but I understand if you do, right? The thing about the heel down and the warrior one is many people don't even know. Many people don't even know. Rounding their back in triangles, in extended flanks, in any kind of forward fold. A lot of people don't even know. They're just told fold. Oh, I don't want to litter in my movie set here. A lot of people don't even know. So they're just going to do it. And if they look beside them and that person's back rounded, or God forbid they look over and the teacher's back the teacher's back is rounded, they're going to round their back. They're going to think that the postures of the practice. They might get aggravated if somebody starts talking philosophy because they're postures of the practice. They might feel it's okay to skip Shavasana because the postures of the practice. And, big deal. I got to deal with a little sore back during my practices because the postures of the practice, and I guess sore back goes with self-awareness and enlightenment and unity and joy, unending bliss. Cosmic oneness. Yes, you must have to suffer through a sore back at least to gain these things, right? Wrong. And I'll finish with this. One more point. Again, these are things that you're going to hear me just... I'm going to rant. I need a new piece of paper, by the way, too. So that's going to happen soon. Fresh piece of paper, and we set this all off again. But anyway, okay. When you're consistent with your yoga practice, you're going to have to counteract it. You can't just keep doing the postures over and over and over and over and over and expect a full body, balanced physique or musculature, because let me break it to you, the postures are missing some stuff. All right, we're missing resistance training. We're missing a lot of pulling strength. We're missing a lot of glute activation, a lot of origin point of the hamstring activation. The deep up behind the glutes. There's certain physical ailments, if you will, that are associated with the overdoing of the yoga practice. Something like this too. Here we go, guys. Ready? Heel down, warrior one. Let's rewind. Heel down, warrior one. Get it out of there. Upward facing dog. Sprinkle it in. Why are we still saying tuck the tailbone in Utkatasana in chair? Why are we still saying, what are we doing? We're just trying to hurt people's backs now. And then it feels good in child's pose. So take a child's pose. It feels good in child's pose because it's allowing the relief of that area, but it's actually creating more compression. Tuck the tailbone. Are we seriously doing this to people? Tuck the tailbone is for a very specific body type with very specific movement patterns throughout the day. You tell me to tuck my tailbone. I only know the tucking the tail reference, guys, in nature when an animal is scared, when a dog is scared. And we're cueing that. And then people are doing it because they think it's a traditional cue, and the practice is the postures. The practice isn't the postures. Please don't ever tuck your tail. Please don't ever be afraid. Be abaya. Be fearless. Okay? And let's get that cue out of there, please. Hips back, in the heels. It's a squat. Do a proper squat. You can squat all the way to the ground if you do it properly. You tuck your tailbone under. What are you doing? You're completely collapsing your lumbar arch. Great. Okay. So yeah, counteracting, pulling, resistance training, understanding that the practice itself is not complete. We need to balance it out with other things. That'll help keep your low back safe. That'll help keep your tailbone safe. Modify accordingly. Honor your body. Don't compare yourself to others. Go through, we have amazing things at our disposal now. Go through YouTube, low back, fundamental movement training. That's one guy that I used a lot to help me. Fundamental movement training or foundational movement training. He's amazing. He's brilliant. So there are people out there. There are resources out there. I think I'm gonna do one. I'll probably next video might be a. Oh my gosh, I do it to myself. You know, it's like I'm just like I'm like a satellite dish up here, and I'm just receiving as much of the UV energy as I can to give you guys the best. Oh my god, I'm like solar charged, solar powered. Give you guys the best possible me, and then once the sun goes down, I just like power down like a robot. I'm like, "Ugh." But this is it. You know, you have to deal with the sweaty me because if the sun's not on me, I'm drowsy. Where was I? Resources. I'm gonna do one. I'll do a low back thing. Just very structural stuff, very basic stuff, and stuff that yogis should use. You know, I like to always bring it back to the community where, yeah, everybody can benefit from it, but I'm going to be much more specific to like, if you're touching a yoga mat, if you're someone that's doing chaturanga, doing upward facing dog, if you, God forbid, are putting your heel down in warrior one, or, you know, just expressing those big back bends and stuff, there's certain things that I can teach you that'll really help to build longevity in your low back. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys, along with some rants and rambles. And as you see, it just pops up whenever it pops up, you know. It might be a day, it might be a week, it might be 4 days, it might be a week. I don't know. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you so much. Comments, always welcome. Like, subscribe, share, the bell. It's all the good stuff. I appreciate you. Let's get to let's start calling something out. I think I'm at like 56 subscribers. Let's get to 100. You know? Let's get to 100 subscribers. Let's do this bit. I was going to say 1,000. Now let's just get to 100. Let's do this bit by bit. Bit by bit. Little by little. Appreciate you guys. Love you so much. Have a blessed day. Peace.